Hello, this will be a quick tutorial to get you through the average LearnSmart assignment for this course. This course will be using the 9th brief edition of Music and Appreciation by Roger Camion. Once your assignments are starting to be posted in Connect, you will notice that some of them will have this SBLS icon next to it. That is to indicate it is a LearnSmart assignment. Now once you go into where your assignments are posted, you should be able to find those. If you then click on the little tab there, you can see how long approximately it should take you to complete the assignment. It's going to show you the start date and then the ultimate due date. And I do want to remind you that with LearnSmart assignments, you cannot get credit for them after the due date. The whole idea behind that is that you stay current with your other classmates as well as where the instructor is in the textbook. So you want to make sure that you plan ahead, and I would suggest making it a goal to complete each of the LearnSmart assignments before their due date. Don't wait till the last minute. You can see you can score a certain number of points. Once you're ready to take it, you can click Begin. LearnSmart assignments do not have limited number of attempts, so you don't have to worry about hitting that Begin button and it being the only time you can hit it. As a matter of fact, I could exit out of this right now and then come right back to it if I wanted to. So the cool thing about LearnSmart assignments is that you can try them as many times as you want to. You can even stop and come back. Now, as you can see, I'm making the text bigger, depending on what device you're on, how big the screen is, your eyesight, things like that. You may want to make the text bigger, and you can do so by clicking the text enlarge or text diminish buttons, and you may click those as many times as you like. It does not some students think that this means just one large size, one small size, but no, you can actually keep zooming in pretty much as much as you want to there. You will notice that usually when you go into a LearnSmart assignment, part of the text will be grayed out like that. All you have to do is click it to read it. And I do suggest that you read everything your first time through. Now, upon subsequent revisits to the material, and hopefully you do revisit it in preparing for tests and such, you may want to gray out that stuff because it's not considered absolutely essential, at least not for the questions that it's going to ask you in a minute. You have a general overview of the pages assigned over here, and once you finish scrolling through those pages, LearnSmart's going to assume that you've read them. So it's going to then kind of make sure that you're ready for the questions. It's going to read just like a regular textbook. You have the option of doing everything in this textbook as you would a normal physical textbook. You can take notes, you can bookmark, you can do all kinds of neat stuff like that. However, you will notice that parts of the textbook will be already highlighted for you, and those are going to be parts that you're going to be given questions on in the practice mode. Now you do have the ability to have this little drop-down menu. Sometimes students miss that little thing there, and if you want to do away with the little preview section, you just click the couple of boxes up there. But as you're reading through your textbook, pay special attention to the highlighted sections. Make sure you kind of understand those. You may have to read those sentences a few times, to really kind of understand them. And you will notice you will come across certain terms. If you hover your mouse over them or click on them, a little definition should pop out. That way you don't have to, look it up. You also have the option of, like if you want to, highlight stuff yourself, you can click and drag, and you can put a bookmark. You can kind of mark it and remind yourself that you don't understand that, and maybe remind yourself to ask a question to your instructor, or you can write a note. And you can, like I said, you can do everything that you pretty much can do in a normal textbook. All right, but as you're reading through, you should, again, pay special attention to the highlighted sections. If you do want to cut those off the first time you're reading through, if you find them distracting, you can click on this and undo that. You also have this little
Reading a
pop-out
smart book helps.
person here. She will give you little hints and stuff, and sometimes she will be a little annoying, so you may find it, for instance, if you have to leave it open and like go get a drink or something, she may, you know, pop up and start telling you that you've been reading the same page for a while and maybe you need to take a break or something. So sometimes she can be a little annoying, but if you need a little digital assistant, you can click on her for help sometimes. And the very first time that you take a LearnSmart assignment, I believe Connect will actually go through a short tutorial with you anyway, but this video is of course to serve as a little bit more on in-depth tutorial. All right, so when you are going through your textbook, you will notice you will have these little links like this. These are just auxiliary things that you can check out. Many of them do have audio-visual demonstrations and stuff. For instance, on this one, you can click this and, you know, see how the flute makes sound and how that sound registers in your brain and stuff like that. So these are neat little things that can pop out. You're welcome to click on those. This is a new feature in this edition of the textbook. There's these little tutorial videos that are embedded, and you can hit play on those. You can make them full screen if you want to. The only drawback to them is that I believe the highest resolution they're in is 480, which will get the job done. Most YouTube streams at 1080 or higher now, so I wish they were a little bit higher resolution, but you know, all that, it's big enough that you can watch it full screen and get the point and stuff. So you can see which terms are covered in each episode, and then you can see related terms to review with that. Once again, highlight over a term if you want to find a definition of it. You can also, like I said, do these little fundamental review things if you want to go through and do those. Those are just little things that provide you examples and things like that if you want to hear how the different pitches and so forth. And then there's a little practice section that you can do also. So play around with those. You don't get any points for doing so, but it is really good auxiliary stuff, especially if you're struggling to understand, you know, your reading. But you just go through and you read all the pages, and sometimes you may even have little things like this, like the little Spotify playlist. If you don't already have a Spotify account, it may ask you to create one. It's definitely worth creating just for the course. It doesn't cost you anything. It's just you can log in even with your Facebook if you don't want to have to go through, you know, the registration process. But the textbook has a Spotify playlist that will give you examples of usually modern music examples of many of the concepts that are discussed in your textbook. For instance, when we get around to talking about syncopation, you may want to, you know, go in here and look at some of the Spotify stuff to get more contemporary examples of some of the music and maybe some stuff that you even recognize. So anyway, be sure to you know, do that. Like I said, it doesn't cost anything for you to register with Spotify. That's just a little extra incentive there with the textbook to do that, because it'll give you really cool examples for that. As you're going through, you also notice that you come across listening outlines. Now, listening outlines, many of those will be assigned as separate assignments called required listening assignments. Not all of them will be assigned as required listening, but as you're going through your textbook, you may want to take note of these and maybe check Blackboard and see if they're assigned as required listening. Now, it will not kill you to listen to these pieces more than once. In fact, you're encouraged to do so. So if I were you, when I was reading through the textbook, the initial time I was listening to it, I would take time to listen. Besides, most of these listening outlines cover pieces that are, usually under 10 minutes long, so they usually don't take much time at all. That's one of the things I like about this textbook, is that it doesn't get too long-winded with its listening examples. Always make sure you read a little bit of background on the piece. That always helps. And then, of course, you have like a graphical representation of the form of the piece. You have a little scrolling guide here that will guide you what you should be listening for, what concepts in the textbook is going to be demonstrating. So those are really neat. Check those out. And like I said, you may have to listen to them again as required listening assignments, but it's always good to listen to these pieces more than once. Now, once you cannot scroll down any further, that means you should be done reading the assigned section. You can click next section down here, I believe. Oh, okay, well, that's a new feature I was unprepared for. It takes you back to the beginning. So apparently you're ready for the practice mode at that point. So once you have read all the assigned pages, you can either hit Shift P on your keyboard. You can see that's a shortcut there, and then subsequently, once you're in the practice mode, you can hit Shift R to return to reading mode, or you can just click this little practice icon down here. And these questions are going to be presented to you much like flashcards, and they're going to basically see if you understood what you read. It's best to read and then immediately do the questions, because obviously if you read and then wait till the next day to answer the questions, you're not going to recall much of what you read. So immediately after you read the sections, you should complete these questions. Now, if you're reviewing for the upcoming quiz on that section or something, then by all means, you can always go back and redo these after you've gotten your score on it. Redoing them doesn't affect your grade at all. But it's always best the first time you do them to do them after you've done the reading. Now, if you do want to review the section that it's covering, you can click on this read about this part right here, and it will take you to the part of the textbook where the question is what it's referring to. But ultimately, you want to get to where you can answer these questions without having to cheat a little bit. All right, this one says true or false: the faster that an object vibrates, the lower its pitch. Now, if you've read your textbook, you know that that's not true. The faster an object vibrates, its frequency of its vibration, the higher the pitch is going to be. So you would click false here. Now, I usually tell my students, don't click the green button unless you're willing to bet like $100 that you're correct. You got to be absolutely sure that that's the right answer. You can click the blue one if you're mostly sure, but there's a little bit of doubt. Click unsure if you're maybe 50-50, feeling like it's correct, or maybe it's a gut feeling like, or an educated guess. But you recognize that it's very likely that you're incorrect. And then if you're literally guessing and you have no clue, because you do have to put some answer to obviously answer it, then be honest about it. There's no incentive whatsoever to lie about these questions, by the way, because you're not going to lose points for lying on, for not getting it right. Let's say if you just click this and you're guessing in the dark, you're not going to get any bonus points. It's not going to serve you or hurt you anyway if you tell the truth or not. The way it's going to benefit you, though, if you do tell the truth, is that you're telling Connect whether or not you mastered the material that you read or not. And ultimately, that should be your goal in this class, is to master the material that we cover. Make sure that you're prepared for the quizzes that you're going to be given on the material, because ultimately, if you do well in the quizzes, since they count more than the assignments, and there's fewer of them, you're going to make a higher grade in the class. That's the whole point. If you understand the material, you're going to do well in the class. So because you read the material, though, and you know this is absolutely certain, you're going to click that and you're going to get confirmation that your answer is correct. Now, if you had answered that confidently with the green button but gotten it wrong, then obviously Connect is going to be kind of concerned that you thought that the wrong answer was absolutely, in your mind, the correct answer. So it's going to make sure that it's going to kind of like reshuffle that item and test you on it again. Now you can see down here I've completed one of the items and I have 9 of them left. Now this one's not true false, this one's a short fill in the blank thing. In music, a sound that has a definite pitch is called a, and we're going to type in the answer here. Now let's say that I am not as sure this time. I'm a little bit unsure. I'm going to click that. And even though I got the answer right, at least I was being honest about it and admitting that it was more of an educated guess than anything else. So all of this is going to impact how your smart book is going to look, how many times you have to re-answer questions and everything. It's a lot of different algorithms that go into it and everything, but basically the end goal here will be that if you do answer these questions correctly and you do give the assignment a good effort, you do read your textbook and read it carefully, you should have no trouble passing the class with an A. Where I find that most students have trouble is when they fall behind with their LearnSmart. They don't do them on time, they don't get credit for them, and there's almost a direct correlation between the students who fail to complete their LearnSmart assignments. They don't really fail the class because they're getting zeros on LearnSmart assignments. They fail the class because they're not reading their textbook, they're not covering the material, they're not digesting the material. And often those students come to class, even if they pay attention in class, we sometimes don't have enough time to cover every topic I'm going to quiz you on. So, you know, even if they're coming to every class, they're still missing out on some of the material. So it's in everybody's best interest. Everybody ends up happy at the end of the day. If you do your LearnSmart assignments, try to do them before their due date so you get them done in time. Stay current with the class, stay up to par, you know, with where we're at in the textbook, and you should do absolutely wonderful in the class if you do that. But you will notice that when you go back to read mode, once you've answered the questions, the aforementioned highlighted sections that we saw before, they are going to change. I don't know if I answered enough. Yep. Okay. So you notice these turn green here. I wasn't sure if I answered enough questions. But this is the textbook telling me that I've mastered that material, and I shouldn't need to come back and review that too much. Now, obviously I haven't answered the questions pertaining to this, so if you do have to stop your LearnSmart assignment and go back and you want to reread the chapter, but you don't want to read the stuff you've already mastered, then you can skip over basically the green stuff. So that's a neat little tool, because some students do have to do that. They have to, you know, stop and then come back. And so that kind of tells you what is there and what's not. And again, you can always turn those off and turn them back on. But do play around with LearnSmart. You really can't mess up your grade doing it, because again, you can do it as many times as you'd like, and it's not going to mess up your grade. Once you lock in 100 for the grade, which you get by answering the questions, like there's really no way to make less than 100 unless you just fail to answer all the questions in time. It's real easy to make 100 on it, and once you have that 100, you can never replace it. Only the highest grade registers. But you do have some other things over here. Play around with those. You're not going to really mess up anything by doing that. As always, if you have any questions or comments, be sure to send me an email. Let me know. And hopefully this short little tutorial has helped you understand how you're to complete these. Make sure that you do answer all the questions. I've had students sometimes thought that they completed all these questions somehow, but when I went back and looked in it, there were some questions that they didn't answer. And it should give you a confirmation that you have submitted it completely once you're done with everything. All right. Like I said, email me with any questions or comments, and I hope that helped you a lot.